for the Fantasy Feud with your hosts Marco Balsamo, Joey Zoll, and last but not least, Alex Balsamo.
Let's go! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Fantasy Feud. I'm your host Marco Balsamo, and with me today, Alex Balsamo.
Oh my god, I wasn't prepared. I just went first. Wow, I must be moving up the totem pole, I guess. But I'm good, boys. I'm here today. I just got back from playing a front nine.
And Joey's all.
I parred on my first hole ever, so just had to put that in there. You know I had to sneak it in.
Back to the golf.
Nobody cares. Nobody. And Joey is here.
Hey, I'm doing well. You want to know something? I knew you were going to Alex there. If you watched my body language, you could tell that I wasn't. I knew you were going to Alex. I wasn't even thinking.
Joe, it's the chemistry. The chemistry between you and I is what makes this something special. Nobody else has this.
It's the backbone of the podcast.
You know exactly what I'm going to do before I even do. 1,000%. 1,000%. All right. Today, we are going into our redraft wide receiver top 12 rankings. So each of us ranked our wide receivers, our top 20 or so wide receivers, and we averaged it out to see who our consensus top 12 were. These two don't know who that consensus top 12 are yet or where they land, so you guys are in for surprises. We'll see. We'll see if you guys
our reaction is going to be sick.
Yeah, watch on YouTube. We're on YouTube, by the way. I don't know if people know that. They probably don't, because we don't tell anybody.
Because we found out.
We don't even announce.
We found out this week.
I didn't even know that we were on YouTube. I was watching our last episode, and I was like, "Holy shit! I need to be more cognizant of the fact that we're being recorded at all times."
That one video that has 3 views. One of them was like me and Carly. We got home from like the bar at like 1:30. We were like on YouTube, and I was like talking about the feud. And I was like, let's see if the YouTube's up. And so we're one of the 3. It was just like hilariously watching it.
And I'm one of the other 3. And I was just watching with Nico while we
guys, get our numbers up.
Something on TV.
Get our numbers up. This is good information in there.
We have more than 3 viewers or more than 3 listeners. It's just not on YouTube. So get the YouTube numbers up. All right, the soundboard was a huge success last week. Everybody absolutely loved it, so we'll continue to use that this week.
But only like 4 times. We only used it like 3 or 4 times in the last episode. Maybe we'll use it a little more.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna use it actually, because I just tried making it cheer and nothing happened. So maybe we won't be using it this episode at all. We're learning. All right, let's get into this. Let's stop making
let's get into this. Alex, what would you say about the golf thing? What was that golf thing you were saying that Marco cut you off on?
God, no.
No, real quick. Let me just fit it in.
Do it.
Quick, all right? I played my first ever actual hole today. That was really late.
Wait.
I played my first ever actual hole today. Like, I only usually go to the driving range because it just started. First ever hole, got a par. That's like unheard of. That's like,
unheard of because you waited way too long to go play your first hole. That'd be like saying I just kicked a soccer ball. Like, I am ready to be on the team.
Yeah, I just wanted to be ready. I didn't want to go out there and embarrass myself. That's all.
Well,
but it was an exciting moment.
That's actually incredible.
Wow. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good
I
for you
appreciate
for being average, Alex. I'm very, very excited for you.
Par is
all right.
Definitely not average.
Well, that's literally what par is, but
no. Oh my God. Par is average.
You're on pace.
Marco doesn't understand golf. He doesn't understand.
I know what golf is, guys. I know golf.
I would say average.
You're on par.
Like
you're on pace. It's average. Oh, whatever. Well, I guess if you're saying average, whatever. Well, this is not a golf podcast. We're talking football.
You thought this was a weird
fantasy football wide receiver rankings. Let's get into it. Number 1 coming off the board. And by the way, let me just say real quick, disclaimer. These are our guys. This is where we expect them to end. This does not necessarily mean the order we would draft them in. Always take advantage of ADP and getting better values, etc., blah, blah, blah. But this is where we're putting our mark on and saying, I think this guy will end at this spot by the end of the year. All right? Now, let's get into it. Number 1, off the board. Consensus, I believe, Davante Adams. Anything to say about that?
No, nothing to say at all. I just think it's, I mean, I mean, like he could probably end in the top 5. Like there's a chance he's not going to be the wide receiver 1, but he's a pretty sure bet for top 3, honestly.
Joey, I know you're just trying to be a little conservative there, but I honestly don't know if there's a chance this guy doesn't end as the number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah,
barring injury, and I know that might
feel
be
that
a
way
bold
about
claim,
Michael Thomas, and then now we feel like he'll never be a
wide
receiver again.
Let's exclude
but
injury.
We just still don't look at Michael Thomas like he'll ever be top 5 wide receiver again.
I mean,
he had a QB change.
He missed 2 games and finished with 360 points. Let's say he played those 2 games that he missed. That's putting him with his points per game at about 410. That's the most of any player, a quarterback too included. That's the most of any player. That's pretty absurd. So 18 touchdowns, missing 2 games. Like this guy could do 75% of what he did last year, and he's still number 1.
Yeah, I'll actually break it down for you even further and say, so a lot of people are talking about the fact that he had 18 touchdowns last year. That means he's going to regress it, and sure, he probably will. But in 4 of the past 5 seasons, Davante Adams has had at least 10 touchdowns. It's just what this guy does. He gets touchdowns. And Aaron Rodgers likes to fucking throw touchdowns. They're gonna make magic together. If you bring him down to 10 touchdowns last year instead of the 18 that he had, he still would have been the wide receiver 3 overall. So, I mean, you look at it, and yes, he might regress, but like Joey said, regression still puts him as a top 3 wide receiver. There's not a safer guy that you can have.
I think that's it too. It's safety. The ceiling's just so high too, but man,
the highest ceiling, highest floor. Sure, he might. There's a chance he ends 5. Sure,
I have him.
But if a guy's floor is 5,
I think I have him in 5 of 8 leagues. 5 of 8 dynasty leagues. I think I own him in. He's my favorite.
Now dynasty. So this is redraft ranking. I will say one thing on dynasty. I have him in some leagues. I love him. I'm hesitant because I know we all feel pretty confident at this point that this is probably Rodgers' last year in Green Bay. And if that's the case, obviously this is Adams' last year as the clear number 1, especially with his age, right? So I'm a little more hesitant. He's probably a few picks down for me in dynasty, but the clear number 1 in redraft. Number 2, coming off the board, is Tyreek Hill. Still going pretty consistent. Tyreek Hill was number 2. You guys, I believe, had Tyreek. Where did you guys have him?
I have at 2.
Tell me where you ranked him.
2.
I'm at 2 as well.
Alex?
I think that's pretty. I think he's a pretty safe guy as well. Maybe not as safe as Adams, but he's just so good. I mean, there's nothing else to it really.
Yeah, I love Tyreek. Not going to shit talk Tyreek at all. I actually had him at 4. I have no problem with him being at 2. There's just 2 guys that I think I like a little bit more. One guy in particular is because of the safety that I feel he has. So we'll get into those guys. But Tyreek, you know what you're getting with Tyreek. He's a guy who can get you 50 points in a week. Sure, he might have some weeks that are lower digits, but he's still pretty high floor. Last year, at least, he was. So I don't think there's any reason to be avoiding this guy, especially when you have Mahomes.
Yeah, I had him at 2. Honestly, he's got a little bit of a low floor. That's kind of like the one thing that scares me about Tyreek. And I know that I probably can guess the 2 that you have ahead of him. I was honestly toying between anywhere 2 to 4 as well, because I think we're thinking about the same people. But I just think his ceiling is so high. He does have a pretty low floor, though, if I'm being honest.
Yep. We're on the same page, probably. Let's get into number 3 then, see if it's that guy. Number 3, Stefon Diggs. I had Diggs at 3. Joey?
Oh, I'm obviously lagging.
Do you have Diggs at 3?
Yeah. Do you not hear me?
Yeah, you're lagging.
Ugh.
No, he's not lagging. It was just a miscommunication. He's not lagging.
No, I had Diggs at 3. Is that what you're saying?
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. No one's lagging.
Yeah, Diggs at 3.
We all right here?
We good.
Marco just didn't Marco just didn't hear Joey say, "Oh yeah, I got Diggs," and he assumed he was lagging.
I didn't assume it. Joey did, and I assumed he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, but you didn't even question it. You just go, "Yeah, you're lagging. You're definitely lagging."
It was lagging pretty bad to me. It seemed really bad lag.
No, all right. I do not have Diggs at 3. I have Diggs at 4. There's just one guy that I really love, and especially this season. We'll get into him, but
DK.
I love Diggs too. Diggs is one of my favorite players in the NFL. I think he's in for probably the same type of season that he just had, maybe a little regression, but I doubt it. I think he's in for mainly the exact same season that he just had.
Yeah, so my thing about Diggs, and it's the reason that I actually had Diggs. Did I say I have him at 3? I did not have him at 3. I have him at 2. So Diggs is the guy that I had in front of, or one of the guys I had in front of Tyreek. My thing about Diggs that I love so much is anytime I'm looking at the wide receivers and I'm trying to evaluate who I want to pick, I love getting a guy who I know is going to have 140 plus targets. Like, that is beautiful to me. So while I love Tyreek, he's targeted a little bit less and has the bigger plays and more touchdowns than Diggs. Diggs has the consistent catches, the consistent target share, and I just love that because I know how high of a floor that is. And honestly, last year, I'm with Alex. I think he's going to have pretty much a repeat of last year because he might see a little bit regression in terms of targets and in terms of yards a little bit, but he didn't have a crazy amount of touchdowns. I think, what do you have, guys? Anybody know off the top of your head? I think it was only like 6 or something.
I think it was crazy. 7 or 8.
It was not double digits. Let me put it that way. I can pull it up in a second, but it was not double digits. He has the opportunity to score more touchdowns in a great offense. So with that, he could probably make up for whatever regression he might see in the PPR side and the yardage, and easily still end as a top 3 wide receiver. But that floor is just amazing to me.
Right, and I totally agree. The only downside to Diggs for me going into next season, the only reason I put him one spot lower was because 170 targets is a lot. I just don't know if he's going to get that again. I think he still gets 150-ish, and I think he does enough with those targets to still be a top 4, top 5 receiver. I just don't know if he'll have it's a lot of targets, 170.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I was saying is he probably will regress in targets a little bit, in catches and yards a little bit, but that can easily, it is 8. I just checked. He had 8 touchdowns. That can easily be made up for if he goes up to 12 touchdowns, which is very realistic. It's not absurd, especially in that offense as the number 1 guy. So.
But, like, we've seen how much better Josh Allen gets every year, and now we give a second year with, like, another offseason practicing together. So, like, I mean, there's a chance he could get more efficient. Like, maybe his targets go down, but I could see him, I guess, what's the word? Making up for it, I guess, is what I'm trying to think of. Making up for it.
I agree. I agree with you there. Another season with Josh Allen, another offseason is definitely great. The only counter I would say to that is that now defenses, coaches, there's a lot that goes into it, obviously. They have a lot more game film to look at. I mean, it's Diggs, right? There's no one else in that offense that's crazy taking away attention by the defense. So now coaches have a whole offseason to watch Diggs and Josh Allen, all the film from last year. So there is a couple of counter arguments to that, but I still love Diggs, don't get me wrong.
All right, that's fair. Let's move on to the next guy. This is where we start to get some controversy as far as our rankings go, and we are not all on the same page here. Coming in at number 4. Does the drum roll? Let's see if it works. Man, this shit's not working. It's so disappointing.
Hey, don't curse.
All right, coming in at number 4. Don't curse. Coming in at number 4 is A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown. Alex's face. Alex, why don't you start us off?
This is just Alex because I had him at 4. I'm sure you had him at 3.
Alex. I
Don't
did.
take this.
I had AJ
I
Brown
literally knew you were going to go Diggs,
Joey.
AJ Brown when you said you put Tyreek at 4.
Yep.
Look,
Joey had him at 4, and Alex had AJ Brown all the way at 10. 10, Joey. 10.
Yeah, I did have him down
ahead,
10.
Alex.
And there's plenty of reasons for it. I mean, listen, I love AJ Brown for Dynasty specifically. I think that he's great, right? He's young. He's just up there with Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf and those guys. just for this upcoming season, I feel like there's a lot more guys that have higher upsides than he does. I mean, we can't ignore the fact that Julio Jones is coming in, right? And don't get me wrong, I think there's plenty of targets around in that offense to go. But you got Derrick Henry, who's going to run the ball a shit ton. He's still going to run it. That offense is still run first. I don't care what anyone says. Now you have Julio Jones coming in, who's going to take away more and better targets than any receiver that was in that offense for the past 4 or 5 years. 100%. He's getting more deep balls, more wide open looks. Like, there's way more that he's going to get than fucking whoever else the wide receiver 2 was on that team last year. And it just takes away targets. But also, I made plenty of arguments about A.J. Brown. And don't get me wrong, I've come around on him. I think that I like him a lot more than I did, say, last year. But we've had this conversation in the past on the podcast. I just don't love how dependent he is on touchdowns. And I think even though Julio's never been that big of a touchdown guy in his career, he's going to take away some red zone targets. He's going to take away some touchdowns. And now, where's the room really to grow for A.J. Brown? I get the argument that you're going to probably make. Now he's not going to see the top cornerbacks. I get all of that, and I agree with it. That's why he's still a top 10 receiver to me. But I just don't put him in my top 5. I don't think he ends as a top 5 receiver this year.
Marco, this is all you. I know how much you love him. I mean, honestly, Alex, I hear what you're saying. I just want to say one thing. I don't think Julio is like as scary of like a vacuum. Like, he's not going to take that many targets away from him. But Marco, floor is yours.
So I'll be kind of brief here, and the reason is this: I'll actually introduce this concept on this part of the show right now as well. So we're planning from now on for all of our listeners here to be giving you guys a consistent one long episode per week, like this episode, nice hour long, where we go through everything on detail. We're on video, everything. And on top of that, we're going to start giving some 5-minute, 10-minute quick episodes of one or two of us just hopping on a phone call and talking about players and giving some one-player analysis. And I plan to do that with A.J. Brown. He's going to be the first guy that I do that with. So I'm not going to give too much detail here. But what I will say is this. A.J. Brown was the wide receiver 6 in points per game last year in his sophomore year. I'm anticipating a massive jump for this guy. And I just want to say, in regards to some of the things that people are using as their bullshit theories as to why he's not going to be elite, again, Julio Jones joining, there's not really even a number of targets that you could say Julio Jones is going to take that leaves nothing left on the table. There's so many vacated targets on this team that there will still be plenty to go around for A.J. Brown. The theory about this team being a run-first team, sure they are, of course. But Alex just listed Justin Jefferson as his wide receiver 3, right? We didn't get there yet. Sorry,
we didn't
Alex.
Fucking get there. You just exposed
I'm going to skip it anyway. I don't give a shit. I'm going to get there. Alex listed Justin Jefferson as his wide receiver 3. And he says A.J. Brown is on a run-first team, which is true. But the Vikings have Dalvin Cook, who touches the ball more than Derrick Henry. So what people need to realize about the Titans being a run-first team is they are a run-first team, but they're also one of the few teams in the NFL that don't pass to the running back at all, which means that there's more targets to go around. So while it might be a lower passing percentage for the team as a whole, the wide receivers get a higher snap or target share as a whole, and that makes up for it. And that's part of what everybody has to understand. And yes, A.J. Brown is a little bit touchdown dependent, but that's just what this guy does. And Julio Jones is the perfect complement because, like Alex said, he's never been a big touchdown guy. If you think Julio Jones is going to come in and have a massive amount of touchdowns, I'm sorry, you're a casual fan who doesn't know anything. And Alex, you're not. I'm not calling you that. You realize he's not. He's had double-digit touchdowns once in his career. Yes, he's a Hall of Fame talent, but he's not the touchdown guy. So A.J. Brown is still going to play that role. Julio's going to take away coverage from him. There's not enough targets. There's not a minimum amount of targets to go around. A.J. Brown's still going to increase in targets. There's plenty to say. I wanted to be brief, but I was not. I'll try and go into more detail on our mini episode.
I agree. Sorry, Joey, not to cut you off. Let me just get this out. I agree with everything you're saying. I like A.J. Brown a lot. Like I said, I think he's a top 10 receiver, and that's something that can be confused when we're doing these arguments. We love these guys. They're just certain guys we have higher. But the thing for me is I think that A.J. Brown can have a similar season to what he did last year. For me, it's just he was, like you said, he was wide receiver 6 in points per game. He was also 0.6 points per game away from being wide receiver 12. So the gap there is not huge. So in my opinion, it's not A.J. Brown taking a step back. It's a lot of these guys that that I put ahead of him taking a step forward.
Yeah, I get it. You're not projecting regression. I'm projecting progression. So that's what I'm trying to say. I think he's going to take a major leap. Year 3 is typically the year for wide receivers to take that leap, and I see it coming. So
yeah, I just want to say too, I think his touchdowns are much safer than like most wide receivers, because you think the Titans, Derrick Henry, they stack the line, and that means there's a lot of jump balls at the goal line, and that's like a lot of his touchdowns were short 1 yard to 4 yard touchdowns, and like that's just kind of get there for him with Derrick Henry in the backfield.
They scheme for him to get into the end zone, and that's what I'm saying about him being a touchdown guy.
Because you're going to stack the box, try to stop Henry from going right down the middle on you, and then he's like wide open one-on-one coverage on the outside.
Yep, exactly. All right, moving into the next guy, a less controversial guy here. We have DeAndre Hopkins.
Dude, I'm 5 for 5.
Coming in at number 5. Are you 5 for 5 exactly?
Literally
Joe?
5 for 5.
That's funny.
The everyman.
So Joey had Hopkins at 5 then. I have Hopkins at 6. Alex, where do you have him?
I have him at 7.
All right, the highest on him.
Joey and Alex, why don't you guys talk about this one then?
Honestly, not that high on him to begin with. I think he's he's just one of those guys who's not uber athletic. So like as he gets older and he's already not that fast, he doesn't jump that high. So it's like, I guess it's like, I don't know. He just doesn't inspire too much confidence in me. He's just he makes a lot of great catches. I mean, he's a beast. Yeah, he's a beast. He's like Andre Johnson though, kind of in that way. It's just like not anything super flashy, but he's just going to get a ton of targets, a ton of catches, and that offense is great. But he's just getting a little older. So I don't know. He's got flat feet.
I think we agree more than we disagree on Hopkins. Honestly, for me, it was just that he is getting older, like you said, and we've seen regression throughout his entire career. Like, if you look at his numbers, they have consistently gone down over the last 4 or 5 years. Besides his yards this past year, I mean, he had 1,400 yards. That was a big gap. But he didn't do it on many more receptions. He only did it on about 8 more receptions and had 300 more yards. He also had 1 less touchdown. He went from 13 touchdowns to 11 touchdowns to 7 touchdowns to 6 touchdowns. So it's just I don't know where the floor is for Hopkins. I think we're in for – I mean, I've said this for like 4 guys already, but I think we're in for a similar season next season. His floor, I think, is really safe. I just don't think his ceiling is top 3 high. And that might sound weird for Hopkins, but I just – put him more in that 4 to 7 range than I do in that 1 to 4 range.
Yeah, so I have him at 6, and I think it's the perfect spot for him because of exactly kind of what Alex is saying, but I disagree a little bit. His floor is a top 12 wide receiver. He's not going to end outside the top 12. That's just a guarantee, unless he gets hurt, right? But there's not. He was wide receiver 4 last year, which is great, awesome, kind of under the radar as wide receiver 4, but there's just not much to look at other than the argument of, well, it was his first year and he's going to get better with Kyler year 2. That's an argument you can make. But other than that, there's not much to look at and say he's going to take a huge jump this year and improve. There's a lot more talk, going in his direction of saying reasons why he would regress, like his age getting older, the fact that he consistently is regressing, or the fact that they added A.J. Green and Rondale Moore. They're
which AJ Green apparently has looked really good in training camp. So if we see a resurgence of AJ Green, then that's dangerous.
I don't think we have an AJ Green resurgence on our hands, but he's no bum. He's gonna get he had over 100 targets with the Bengals last year. Like he's not gonna be targeted at all.
I know, but that was really bad. Like he just couldn't catch anything, couldn't get open. But he was coming off injury, so maybe second year.
Exactly. So, and he had terrible QB play for most of those targets, right? He wasn't targeted that much early on, and then Burrow got hurt, and he started getting targeted a lot more. So, I don't know what to expect. My point is, yes, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'll disagree with Alex. It's not out of the realm of possibility for Hopkins to end wide receiver 1. It's possible. But if I were betting for him to end in the top 5 or not, I would bet that he ends somewhere between 6 to 12. If I had to do an over-under, I'd go with the under and say 6 to 12.
I put DeAndre Hopkins at 5, but like I'm like the highest on him, but I'm not really ever too high on him. I very rarely have him on my teams because I like a wide receiver with a higher ceiling. So like we'll get to the guys down the road, but like I'd rather go for like, I don't know, not a Justin Jefferson.
You want the home run?
Yeah, kind of. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Like a Tyreek or something. I'm not getting a home run out of DeAndre Hopkins. I'm getting consistency, which is good.
I was gonna say I do love his consistency though. I mean that's just he is again one of those guys with one of the highest like high ceiling to high floor ratios. So I don't have any problem with somebody taking him on their team. But
it's
I
like
know
you're
what you're saying.
guaranteed 12
right
and
now.
you're guaranteed below 22, as opposed to like somebody who'd be like 8 and 28.
Right, like one of our we got some guys coming up on the list that could be falling there. This one might be a little more, but we'll see. All right, number 6 on the list. I already ruined him a little bit. Justin Jefferson, Alex, bringing JJ in at number 3 on his list.
Yep, I actually haven't been. It's funny. I haven't been that open about it throughout this entire offseason. In the few pods that we did do together, I love Justin Jefferson. I love Justin Jefferson more than I love DK Metcalf. Justin Jefferson has been. He was so good last year. Like it's not even funny. He finished as a wide receiver 9 or 8, I believe, in points per game. And like I said with AJ Brown, yes, 8 or 9, but he was also 0.4 points away from being a wide receiver 6 in his rookie season. And there's a lot of great things about it, Justin Jefferson too. The fact that one, he had 7 games of 5 or less receptions. 7 games of 5 or less targets. 7 games of 5 or less targets. Between Hill and Adams and Hopkins and Ridley and Diggs, the top 5 guys last year, they had 1 each. 1 each of games with less than 5 targets. Justin Jefferson had 7 of them. He still ended up finishing with 125 targets. He only had 7 touchdowns. Like we said with Diggs, it's not a whole lot. Now you have a second year with Kirk Cousins. Like, Cousins is a good quarterback as much as people hate on him. He's a good quarterback for fantasy purposes. Justin Jefferson, I think, is in for a major leap. I think he takes over Diggs' 3rd spot behind Adams and Hill. I really think Joey said not Justin Jefferson when we were talking about ceilings a second ago, but I think his ceiling is absurdly high.
Yeah, I just wouldn't take him over DeAndre is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and for me too, like I said this in the past, a lot of what I say is eye test, and Justin Jefferson is just one of those players who fits the eye test. And I really think that he has a chance to elevate his game, and the ceiling is absurdly high. And if you look at Thielen's numbers too, I don't have it exactly for you. This is the last thing I'll say about Jefferson. Thielen was getting 10, 11 targets in all of these games that Jefferson was putting up big numbers. Like, Thielen is not a worry for me. Thielen finished as wide receiver like 13 or 14. Like, he can be a top 15 receiver, and Jefferson can still be a top 6, 7 receiver. Like, it's not that, crazy as some people like to use Thielen as an argument as why Jefferson can't be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Thielen's just the red zone target basically right now, and we talked about that last week, me and Marco, but he gets just a ton of work in the red zone. The thing that scares me about Justin Jefferson is, like, a lot of his production last year was based on, like, some really huge plays. And, I mean, those happen from time to time, but, like, I wouldn't trust Kirk Cousins to be, like, this big play quarterback all the time. Like, for Justin Jefferson to end 7th in, like, air yards in the entire NFL among wide receivers, like, I would expect that not to happen again because it's just not in Kirk Cousins' nature to really be, like, a gunslinger like that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that crossed my mind. But at the same time, if you look at his yards after catch, 450 yards after the catch, that puts him as the 8th highest. And again, as a rookie, right? So, like, this is a dude who just came out of college, now going up against the top cornerbacks in the league, and he's 8th in yards after the catch. So he doesn't necessarily need Kirk to put the ball in the air for 60 yards and catch it downfield. He creates his own yards, and that's another great thing about him.
I feel like Cousins is actually like one of the better deep passers for some reason. I feel like there's a stat that supports that, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
But that's like the Baker one too, where it's when you are on a run first, really good running team, you are always going to have good deep numbers because people are not expecting you to throw deep often.
That's fair. That's a fair argument. So Justin Jefferson, I have nothing bad to say about him. I have him at 9, which is the lowest of us all, and all I wrote was after the rookie season he had last year, this is an insulting spot to put him at, and I apologize. That's literally all I wrote. Because I have nothing bad to say about him. He could end wide receiver 1 overall as a dark horse. There's just other guys that I wanted to put in front of him, but he could swap easily into my top 5, and I would not even blink an eye at it. The only thing I'll say, Alex, and this is not against Justin Jefferson, it's against you, against A.J. Brown, is again, you just said Thielen's not something to worry about, but he was a top 10 wide receiver. Dalvin had more touches than Henry, but Henry's something to worry about for A.J. Brown. I just want you to think about it for the future. Again, how is Julio a threat, but Thielen's not? How is Henry a threat, but Dalvin's not? You can't use those arguments against A.J. Brown and then say, but you can't use that against Justin Jefferson. It just doesn't make sense. So just think about that, and we'll move on, all right?
Yeah, one thing
Go ahead, Joey. Go ahead.
I want to say something about Kirk Cousins. So I take that back that he doesn't throw the ball deep. He just doesn't throw the ball, I guess, that often, like in the intermediate, because they're only throwing at 27th most in the league, so they're not throwing it a ton. But he's 14th in deep ball attempts. So I mean, that's probably like if you assume that they were throwing it like middle of the pack, he might be like 10th or so, top 10 in deep ball attempts. So I take that back.
All right, let's move on to number 7 on the list.
This guy better be number 7 because we are getting way too low right now, and I don't like it. And the fantasy community is not going to like it if it's not this guy.
I think it's the guy you're thinking of, Alex.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think it is. Calvin Ridley?
Okay. Yeah, it had to be Calvin
Ridley.
There you go. I mean, that was... I knew 7. I had him at 6, but I thought that was low.
You have him at 6. Joey's the lowest at 9, which is wow. Joey has this theme this year. If you guys have noticed, I don't know if you guys have yet or not. Our listeners from last year.
I know where you're going. Yep.
Joey likes to say the opposite of whatever he called and predicted accurately last year. It's his thing. I'm the double down guy. I like to call it again.
You guys are when a good thing happens. No, you take this David Montgomery is going to be a solid RB2, and now you have him as a top 5 running back. And you take Calvin Ridley is going to end
I don't have him as top 5
as a wide receiver 1, and now you have him as like number 6. I just have him at 9. I moved him up 3 spots from where I had him last year, and I moved Montgomery down because of like the competition. But that's not.
We're not talking Montgomery right now.
Yeah, but Ridley,
I don't have Montgomery in the top 5.
I moved Ridley up 3 spots from last year. Here's my issue with Ridley. I liked it better with Julio on the team playing the outside and their number 1 wide receiver being in the slot. Doesn't necessarily need their number 1 cornerback on him. In the games without Julio, he only caught 61% of his targets, and he was on the season he was at like around above 80%.
But he was elite from a fantasy perspective without Julio.
Yeah, but he's not. I mean, like, dude, how often? Okay, so now we don't have Julio. How often are they going to continue to pepper him with targets if he's only catching 61% of them? He had 2 touchdowns in those 7 games too. Like when it gets tighter and he needs to get open, and he's got the number 1 like cornerback on him, or they can put double coverage on him without Julio. He struggled. I mean, he's still got a ton of yards, but it's just
and that's
just the one thing.
That's
about
the
Calvin.
thing, though, Joey. Like I agree. There's reasons to say that he might not be as good as people are expecting without Julio. One of the reasons I actually have is kind of different from your mindset. People are saying, well, Julio's gone, and I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure Ridley was like on pace for wide receiver 1 when you look at his games without Julio. If he had just played without Julio all year, he would have been like wide receiver 1. And that's what people are expecting. My only thing is it's not the same because Kyle Pitts is there. And Kyle Pitts is essentially like adding a new true wide receiver threat, right? They're not going to use him like a normal tight end. he's going to be an actual wide receiver threat. So I think that helps Ridley in the sense that you're talking, Joey, where maybe, he's not being double covered as much or whatever it might be. But it hurts him in the sense that he's not going to be peppered with targets the way he was when Julio was out. So I love Ridley, though. I have him at wide receiver 5 because he has that upside. Again, he's just a high upside, high floor guy. He's somebody who could end wide receiver 1, and I don't see him ending outside the top 12 on this team now. I don't see it happening. He was wide receiver 4 last year.
I could see it happening, but I mean, we'll see. I just think that the Falcons are. Matt Ryan's so uninspiring. It's a bad O-line. He doesn't have much to take really any attention away from him. So that's just the thing that scare me. Although I think Calvin Ridley is the best route runner in the NFL, and it's not even close. So that can clean up a lot of stuff just doing it the right way like that. So, I mean, he could definitely do it.
Look, I like Calvin Ridley a lot, and I think Calvin Ridley is in for a fantastic season because I don't mind Julio leaving now that Kyle Pitts has come in. Well, some people might, but I'm of the group that believes Kyle Pitts is about to come in and be freaking top 2 tight end. I think he's in for those kind of numbers, honestly. I think he's that good. So I think he'll take away enough attention to allow Calvin Ridley to get in deep. So the thing that Calvin Ridley does best is what Joey just said, is route running and his ability to get deep. So he was number 1 in air yards last season. Obviously, that means the ball's flight was in the air for the longest amount of time. He caught the most yards, whatever. Doesn't matter. The point is that he catches a lot of deep balls, and it's even better now that, like, Kyle Pitts, I think, is even better for Calvin Ridley's game than Julio is. Kyle Pitts is going to play like a wide receiver, but he's going to play like a wide receiver who's playing in the middle of the field, 20, 30 yards downfield, not going too deep, but he's going to take coverage underneath away, and now Ridley's open downfield. Whereas you have sometimes Julio running the same route downfield that Ridley is. Like, that's not good for Ridley's game. This is going to be an even better season, I think, for Ridley, and I think he has even more potential to finish number 1 than he does outside the top 12.
I like it. I like the take.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next guy on the list. Number 8, Allen Robinson. A-Rob coming in. Joey, I think you were the lowest. Were you 10?
I had him at 10, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you start us off?
Before he goes, I'm at 8. I'm at 8 at A-Rob, so I'm right here on par.
I like A-Rob a lot.
7.
I like A-Rob a lot. I think A-Rob is in that same vein as like DeAndre Hopkins, where it's a very high floor, low ceiling, but just shifted a little bit further down than DeAndre's is. I mean, it's the Bears. There's like awful weather there, and the majority of his home games, awful quarterbacks, awful team as a whole. He's like the Larry Fitzgerald, where it's like, he's very good for sure, but like he's not a fantasy fun guy. All we do is get like these Penn State tweets about how don't sleep on Allen Robinson. Like, Allen Robinson, one of the best in the league. But it's like, dude, the stats aren't going to be there. Yeah, he is. He's one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, and he did it from the day he came into the league. Like, took a lot of people by surprise. But I just think that team caps him a lot. I hate the Bears, and I think they're going to be really bad until they fire Matt Nagy.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by your comments here, Joey, because what this comes down to, not only for us, but for everybody who's evaluating this, is are you a Justin Fields believer or not? Do you think he can be a very talented starting QB in the NFL, or do you think he's a bust? Joey is on the bust train.
And I just want to respond to that, too, because, correct. Not a bust, per se, but, like, I mean, I don't know, 3 years, and they probably cut bait on him, and they just realize he's not going to do it. Like, I don't think he's going to get that.
You think he'll be mediocre or below?
Mediocre or below. And I also think of it like this. Like, even if he is really good, like, not Herbert level good, but let's say he's, like, Lamar good. In Lamar's rookie season, like, there was a lot of games where he just, like, wasn't making that much targets. There was a lot of games where the team was losing as a whole.
Fields is a much better passer than Lamar. Just because Fields is also a mobile QB doesn't mean...
Yeah, I mean, Fields is definitely a much better passer, but, like, dude, he dropped a lot in the draft. Not that many people were that interested in grabbing him. He's an Ohio State quarterback. Like, we've been in this thing a ton of times. Like, good. I hope he succeeds. I'm not rooting against him, but I just think that, like, there's nothing about him that makes me think he's going to take that next step.
I've been on a similar train as you with Justin Fields. I just don't know. I put it there. I'm not going to say I hate him. I'm not going to say I love him. But I do think he's better than what fucking Allen Robinson has had in his entire career. I don't care how bad he is. He's better than those guys. So if he comes in here week 3, week 4, I don't see a way that Allen Robinson is putting up less than like 14, 15 points because he only had 4 games under 12 points with those shit-stained quarterbacks that he had last year. So if he has a even mediocrely decent quarterback next year, then there's no reason to believe he's not putting up 15 plus every game.
Yeah, I'm on the same exact page, Alex, and I'll actually one-up it a little bit. I actually think that Justin Fields has the potential to be a truly talented QB in the NFL. I think that we as Giants fans are going to massively regret the fact that we had him on the clock. Hopefully we don't, because I'm hoping Daniel Jones pulls it around. We're not going to talk Daniel Jones right now, Joey. I'm hoping. I'm just a hopeful fan. All right? I'm very hopeful. But if he doesn't, which is the higher probability, then I think we will massively regret not taking Justin Fields and trading that pick to the Bears for them to take him instead. And the biggest thing about all this is that, like Alex said, he's going to be an upgrade, even if it's Andy Dalton playing instead. Even if it's Andy Dalton. Allen Robinson is getting a massive QB upgrade. This is the guy, and you've seen it. If you're in the fantasy community, you've seen the posts about it. There's no wide receiver in the NFL who has played with worse QB play throughout their entire career than Allen Robinson, who's had to deal with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky as his main QBs. Like, nobody has had to deal with worse, and he's still been elite. Last year, he was the wide receiver 9. The year before that, he was the wide receiver 8. He's gotten 150-plus targets 2 years in a row, about 100 receptions 2 years in a row. You give him a QB and an offense upgrade, and his 6 touchdowns last year could be 10 touchdowns, easily. That's not aggressive. His 100 in catches on 150 targets could be 120 catches on 150 targets. His 1,250 yards could be 1,500 yards. None of those things I just said are absurd. None of them are outside the realm of possibility. And if those things happen, that stat line I just painted for you is wide receiver 1 overall. So to me, he is, again, one of those guys that I love because his floor comes from the fact that he's targeted like crazy, which is the type of floor I look for, like I said, with Diggs. And he has the upside to be wide receiver 1.
Right. And the thing, I agree with you, the numbers that you just named are the exact reason that Joey's argument doesn't make much sense. And I don't think Joey hates Allen Robinson by any means, but saying that it's cold in Chicago and whatever, he's been wide receiver 8 and 9 the last 2 seasons. Clearly the fucking cold doesn't matter.
QBs.
Yeah, it's the shit QB play that has made him not a top 5 wide receiver. He's not been a top 5 receiver because of QB play, and that's simple, just the fact. One more thing, Joey. The best thing about Allen Robinson's season last season, I'm looking at the numbers here. Against Xavier Rhodes in Indianapolis, 23 points. Against Tampa Bay, 19 points. Against Marshawn Lattimore in New Orleans, 21 points. He's doing it against Jair Alexander in Green Bay, 28 points. He's doing it against the best cornerbacks in the league. Now give him a quarterback who can...
Bro, you had him at 8 and I had him at 10. Don't make me the bad guy.
You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot, Joey.
Here, I get what you guys are saying. Oh, dude, Allen Robinson's great. Like, I think Allen Robinson is great. I think that team is not, though. I think there's a good chance that Justin Fields could be great. There's a good chance that he could not be very good at all. And maybe it's just like a repeat of like what we thought Jay Cutler was going to be, or Nick Foles, or Mitch Trubisky. Could just be like all that again. And I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely an Allen Robinson fan, a big Penn State fan. Anybody from there I'm a fan of. But it's just, dude, it's the Bears. You just sound like a Bears fan, basically. Is this the Super Bowl year for the Bears too?
Listen, I'll defend Joey for a second. So one thing to take away from this with Allen Robinson. And I'll give the same for A.J. Brown, too. We haven't been saying what the ADPs for these guys are, but Allen Robinson's ADP is 12, and we're giving shit to Joey for putting him at 10. So Joey's above what most people are. Alex and I are significantly above, which means Allen Robinson is just a great value right now in drafts. You should be taking him.
Yeah, maybe.
You unmuted, so I thought you wanted to say something.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No, I mean, I don't know. It's wishful thinking to me.
All right. Got it. All right, next guy on the list. Joey probably will want to talk about this guy more. I know
I have a top 5 guy who is falling here right now. This is incredible.
Yes, he is falling, and he's not next on the list, Alex. Next on the list is Keenan Allen.
Good, thank you.
Keenan Allen.
Oh,
yes,
perennial Mr. Target.
Number 9. Yes, perennial Mr. Target is right. Alex was the lowest on Keenan, I believe. I was. Ooh, shocking. I was the lowest on Keenan at 10. Alex, where'd you have him? 9?
I was at 9. I'm on par for the last 2 guys here.
All right, and Joey is 6.
Yeah,
Joey,
I like Keenan a lot. I think the fact that you get another year, the same way we said like Diggs could get better, I think Keenan could get better with another year with Herbert, like just kind of playing in the offseason. Like they didn't have that offseason together where Herbert was the QB1. So this will be good for them. I just wish he got more touchdowns. But, I mean, as he's getting older, maybe they start utilizing him more in the red zone as opposed to getting, like, a ton of yards. But, like, still, the targets are insane. 150 in 2019, 147 last year in 2 less games. Like, his pace just goes up and up every year.
Yeah, I love Keenan. I mean, he's a monster. He's going to be a monster when he's on the field. The only reason I have Keenan as low as 10 is because when you're looking at these guys and you're trying to evaluate who to rank in front of each other here, and it's so close. Like, I'm not going to take Keenan in front of Justin Jefferson when I know Keenan has the older age and the potential to have another injury because he consistently has been nicked up throughout his career, right? Like, those are the types of things that I'm looking at. There is a red flag when it comes to injury history for Keenan and just the consistent picking up small, tiny injuries. So for that reason, like if there is anything for one guy and not for another, I'm gonna bump him down, and that's why I have Keenan down at 10.
I see what you're saying, Marco. I have him down for different reasons. I mean, Keenan's not missed more than 2 games in a season since 2016, so that's a long time ago. And the only reason he missed games, I said more than 2 games.
Last year he missed more than 2 games.
He had 14 last year.
Like 14.
Only 14? I thought he missed 3.
Nope.
Wait, let me pull it up. I don't believe it.
14.
I don't believe it. In one of those,
it says it right.
It's the truth.
He definitely got hurt in one of those.
Let Alex finish his point. Okay.
Maybe he got hurt in one of them. Whatever. The only thing I don't love about Keenan is how, target. I guess target dependent he is. I mean, 990 yards on 150 targets. That's really low. That's really low considering the amount of targets. The guys in the top 5 or 6 who had 150 targets were 1,300, 1,400 yards. That's a big gap, a big difference. Luckily in PPR, the receptions is what matters more than the yards. But the reason I have Keenan at 9 is simply just because if he's, goes down in targets to 130 and has 80 receptions and 900 yards, like that's not a great season. So that's just why I have him lower.
Yeah, I don't agree. I love guys who have high targets. If there's one thing I want my guy to be dependent on, it's high targets. If they've consistently done it, right? Like there's obviously players who will have a random target spike year, and I get that. Or if there's a reason to believe that it's going to go down, like if they added a new true threat, then I get that as well. But if it's a guy who's consistently putting up that target share, like that's a good thing to me.
Well, the offense,
you're right.
like the coaching staff changed, so the targets could change.
Yeah, but he's been through coaching staff changes and still consistently is targeted like crazy.
Yeah.
But and he did miss 2 games last year. I'll correct real quick. But the third was he got hurt after 1 catch, so it was basically 3 games.
Just to go back what Alex was saying, as soon as he said that, I know exactly what he's talking about. Like target dependent. He's like Jamison Crowder is like Magikarp. He would be like Gyarados. Like Keenan Allen's like the Gyarados of like the evolution.
The Gyarados
but it's still the fact that he's that same target thing that Jamison Crowder has.
If we don't come up with an Instagram post with Jamison Crowder as Magikarp,
yeah,
Keenan
exactly.
Allen as Gyarados, who's the red? Is Stephon Diggs the red Gyarados? Then is that what is that? Is that the
you're
that
going above my head on that? What's the red Gyarados? Oh, this is only like the second.
The red
game
Gyarados is from
the Game Boy Color.
It's from the gold one. Yeah, the gold one.
I would say it's probably Diggs, 100% Diggs. Could be Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley could be the red one. Is there a blue Gyarados? There is a blue Gyarados, the regular Gyarados.
That's the normal.
Yeah.
All right, let's get off the Pokemon train. Moving into the next guy. All right, Alex, are you ready? While Alex learns how to unmute himself, if that ever happens.
DK was 10.
DK.
What the fuck did you have him at?
DK.
Would you have him at 16?
No, I didn't.
14.
Yeah, you and I guess I was.
I'm trying to do the math here.
By 4.
Hey, I got you, Alex. You're good.
I'm back. All right, I'm good.
Back, Alex.
I was going to say, we lose Alex for this one.
What you missed was DK Metcalf coming in at number 10 and Joey yelling at me because
I had him at 8. So, dude, it's Marco that's weighing him down.
Brutally low. Marco, where did you have him?
14, obviously.
14?
No, not obviously, Joey. That's not how math works. 12.
Wow,
it doesn't have to.
So
the average number doesn't have to be 10. You just has to be the 10th highest.
Come on.
Wait, what'd you have him at, Alex?
I had him at 5.
Yeah,
or 6. Or 5, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Marco, admit to the Fantasy Feud crowd, because they need to hear this because you're being mean. Admit to them that you only put DK Metcalf at 12 because you just wanted to hear us talk about it. Come on. I know you're trying to get content out there for the people. You want something to talk about.
Move.
You only put him at 12 so that we would talk about it. You have him as like 8, right, on your secret list?
I sincerely would rather the 11 people in front of him. I think DK will finish behind these 11. I think DK, I honestly put him at 12 kind of so that you guys wouldn't fucking kill me and yell at me. I think he falls outside of the wide receiver 1 conversation this year. I think he regresses.
You are absurd.
I don't think listen, Josh came on the show last episode, and he broke down how that's possible, and I agree with him. And I hate Josh. I never agree with Josh.
Sucks.
He's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but I can put together some numbers for you that'll make you think he's going to take a step forward. It's just like, don't... It's like
Josh's argument was that
I agree with
Josh's argument was that DK would fall out of the top 12 because Julian Edelman did it last year. And Devontae Parker did it last year. That was his argument. His argument was that dudes who retired or were injured
he's just very dumb, and he doesn't know how to give his argument.
Fight the argument. We're not talking about Josh's opinion anymore. We're not
this
Marco just used Josh coming on here and arguing DK as his argument.
Be nice
and
to Josh.
Now he's saying how stupid his argument was.
No, it wasn't. I wasn't using it. I was just referencing it. Listen, I do think that DK can regress. He was wide receiver 10 last year in points per game. Putting him at wide receiver 12 is not fucking absurd in any way. We have plenty of guys that you guys have regressing more for no other reason. All right? Having him at wide receiver 10 last year and now putting him at 12 is very realistic. They had a philosophy of letting Russ cook last year, and it didn't work. And I don't think the Seahawks are going to be going that same path again. And I don't think that they're going to be having those shootout games that they had again. And I think he'll see slight regression. I'm not insulting the guy. I'm not saying he's terrible. It's just there's other people I like more who I think are going to progress and jump him. And even if he doesn't regress, again, if he stays at 10, if he stays at the same numbers he did last year that put him at 10, and we have 2 or 3 guys progress, then he drops down. And that's all it is. He's dropping a couple spots. It's not crazy.
Don't let Russ cook again. I don't want Russ to cook. Because if the Seahawks offense goes back more towards focused on the run, that's what I hope they do. DK is going to be open so much more. That's DK's game. That's great for DK. He's going to be open way more down the field on play action.
He's not going to be
defense is going to have to watch.
He's not losing
because when
attention.
When they were letting Russ cook, defenses weren't worried about the run for the Seahawks like they have been in past years. That wasn't the first thing that came to their mind when you thought of the Seahawks. It was DK Metcalf. And he still had a wide receiver 10 season. He was still great. And now you're going into this season, and hopefully they rely more on the run. Defenses have to stack the box a little more because I love Chris Carson. I think he's great.
Or your argument earlier, now defenses are going to game plan more for DK, and they're going to be able to shut him down a little bit more. And by the way, DK can be shut down. We know that Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, but DK, dude.
You didn't just use Jalen Ramsey as a comparison as to why D can be shut. Jalen Ramsey shuts down everyone. Okay, DeAndre Hopkins can be shut down. Everyone can be shut down.
He can be shut down.
I honestly look at DK Metcalf as like one of my favorite like picks in the third round. Assuming you go 2 running backs back to back, you'll feel pretty good about your running backs. I want wide receivers that have really high ceilings. Like, I think DK Metcalf has about as high as a ceiling as like anybody in the league. So, in my opinion, I mean I have DK at 8. I put him ahead. I put Justin Jefferson ahead of him. I mean, to me, they're like they're 1A, 1B, not or 7A.
Yeah, you want to talk about big play guys, Joey. You didn't love Justin Jefferson for big play.
I have Justin Jefferson at 7, dude.
DK. I know. That's what I'm saying. That's one of my reasons with DK. Right? He's just a big play touchdown type guy, and yes, he definitely can do that again. I'm not saying he's not gonna, because that's what he does. He's good at that, and I'm not projecting him to get worse. I'm just projecting other people to improve ahead of him a little bit. I don't think it's absurd to say that a guy
there was a ton
jump.
of single-digit games for DK. Yeah, there's a ton of single-digit games for DK. There's a ton of down games. And, I mean, I get that. I think, honestly, I like him at 8. Like, I think I'd still take him over Calvin Ridley, over A-Rob. And, I mean, like, other than that, it's like that's
pretty much the ahead. Like, it shocks me that you would take him over Ridley and A-Rob, to me. Honestly. And I like him. I'm not insulting him. But he was 10 last year. Both of those guys were better than him last year. Both of those guys have more reasons to expect progression than him from year over year.
Why?
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Why would you expect them to have more progression?
They have reasons. Ridley loses Julio and he played better without Julio, right? There's a reason. A-Rob gets a QB upgrade. There's a reason. What is the reason other than he's going from year 2 to year 3 to expect DK to have this
said with A.J. Brown. You just said with A.J. Brown 6 minutes ago that the third year for wide receivers was the breakout year. And now that DK's in his third year,
okay.
What doesn't mean everybody does it, except that he's in his third year.
It doesn't mean everybody.
Here's some reasons
AJ,
why you can get
hold
better.
on. Wait, 1 second. AJ Brown, I told you I'm going to go into an entire episode on AJ Brown. But AJ Brown being in his third year is not my reason for expecting progression. Yes, I said this is year 3 and you see it jump a lot in year 3, and that's true for DK as well. But that has nothing to do with why I think AJ Brown's going to have a jump. The vacated targets do. The Julio joining, which I think is actually a good thing for AJ Brown, does. Things like that have reasons for me to say AJ Brown's going to make a jump. I just don't have a reason for DK other than everybody. I think it's just everybody's enamored with DK. They're fucking enamored with him. Like, and everybody just loves the idea of him being a top 5 receiver because of how big and amazing he is and how intimidating and awesome he is. And I get it. That's all true. I understand that. But just you're looking at it, and he was wide receiver 10 in points per game, and there's no clear reason to expect progression other than just the fact that we love him and we think he'll get better. Like, it's too general for me. I'm not on board. He's a wide receiver 1, but he's a low end wide receiver 1 for me.
I get what you're saying. I definitely understand where you're coming from. I mean, you just don't think they're gonna get as lucky as I do. Like, I mean, his big thing is you're going to bank on a lot of big plays, and you're going to get a lot of his points are going to come from like a 60-yard, 80-yard touchdown. And you're just, I mean, like, that's just what he does, though. Like, he's a freak of nature. That. I get that. I mean, I get that. It's like a bunch of parlays. You put a ton of parlays down as opposed to just betting that the Rays will beat the Orioles today.
I was hoping that I would finish chewing in time to get this point out. Marco, you don't like that? A.J. Brown, that's all he's done in his career. I mean, I don't want to go back to A.J. Brown again, but...
No, A.J. Brown does short touchdowns.
No, he's
A.J. Brown is... Alex, yes, he has big plays, but he's a yards after the catch big play guy. He's a shorter touchdown type guy. He has some big plays in there as well. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he's not as reliant on them as DK is. A.J. Brown is a better all-around wide receiver.
Oh, I disagree so wholeheartedly. It's because A.J. Brown...
We did this debate 5 episodes ago, and it's been carrying on through every episode.
The debate. I lost it. I lost that debate, so
yeah,
I'm not gonna have it again. I disagree.
And the reason you lost the
debate
is because you're so dismissive of DK Metcalf. I just think that you're just being way too critical of DK Metcalf and just assuming that it will never, none of these deep passes will ever hit. Like they will.
They will. They will hit again, Joey. I'm saying they hit last year.
Let's move on.
They?
We've been talking about.
I'm not saying he's gonna.
Yeah,
get
they
worse.
did.
All right.
I think he's gonna get better at his first step.
I'm just saying I don't see why he would get better. That's all.
I do.
All right. Number 11 on the list. This one is going to be. Oh man, I really wish I didn't have to just have a fight about DK as we go into this one. Number 11, Chris Godwin.
Cool. I had him at 12.
Cool.
Feel justified.
Joey had him at 12. Alex had him at 15. And I, therefore, had him the highest at 8 overall. Yes, 8. Joey, or Alex, you had him the lowest. Do you wanna get rolling on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that I was very high on Chris Godwin last season, right? I had him as number 1 over Michael Thomas, which actually didn't turn out to be that wrong. But he didn't finish as number 1, as we all know. He didn't finish near number 1, as we all know. And for the same reasons he didn't finish number 1 or didn't finish top 10 as last year is the same reasons I don't think he is this year. I don't think Tom Brady, I mean, you can go really far back and say that he's done it in the past, but I don't think that he is going to find Godwin enough in that offense with Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Fournette and Gronk to just – I don't think the opportunity is there for Godwin to be a top 8 receiver.
Yeah.
I think he's top 20. I feel like with a lot of the guys we've talked about high ceiling, high floor. And with Godwin, it's like medium ceiling and really low floor. And that, for me, isn't very exciting.
There was a point that we kept hitting last year about Godwin that we were nervous about. Like, without Winston, are they going to be throwing the ball nearly as much? Like, they're not going to get as many yards. And I think that was, like, really what ended up happening. I mean, dude, he was 27th in snap share on the team, 26th in route participation, like 47th in target share. Like, he's just not getting nearly as much attention. Yeah, and it's like the people that Brady's comfortable with is AB and Gronk. Like, Cameron Brate had a good season. O.J. Howard's come back. All these guys want to be in the slot on that team. Like it's that's where he shines the most, and he's not really getting the opportunity.
I get it. Listen, the only hesitation I have towards Godwin, and that's why I say I might get shit for this one. I do understand he's one of the riskier guys on this list for me, and I've been talking about having a high floor. I get that. This is truly where I think Godwin can end, is around wide receiver 8. I do think that's possible. And you got to remember, he was our consensus top 2 wide receiver last year. And what changed is not that he had a bad season. It's not that Brady didn't like him. It's none of that. He got hurt, and he was consistently hurt. He was playing with, like, broken fingers at times, guys. So you talk about the snap share and shit. He played through a lot of injuries last year. Missed games, missed times, had no preseason with Brady, had none of that. One of the reasons, I mean, you look at, I don't know if you guys read, Godwin actually wrote an article, and it was a pretty cool article about his journey through the NFL. And one of the things that he included in there was his conversation with Tom Brady coming over. And Brady had told him, like, he was the reason. He was one of the reasons he wants to come to the Bucs. Him and Evans being that amazing wide receiver duo. And he was so excited to play with those two. And I truly believe that. I know there's QBs are going to hype up their receivers and get them confident and shit. But I truly believe that because this is the type of receiver, and it's what we said all last year. This is the type of receiver Brady loves, right? A guy who can play in the slot, have that amazing yard after catch ability, which people don't remember. He was incredible. It's what we hyped up last year like crazy, is that 2 years ago, he was the best in the league at it, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that he can get that again. I believe that the reason that he struggled, and by the way, struggled is an interesting word because in terms of points per game, he was wide receiver 15.
It's weird.
Like, yeah, very. I was talking about the spelling
word,
for
dude.
sure. That's Such an interesting word. Struggled is an interesting word to use to describe Chris Godwin because he was still wide receiver 15 in terms of points per game. When he played, he was close to being a wide receiver 1. And again, that was playing through injuries. That was playing with no chemistry with Brady yet. So I just expect a lot of those things to get cleared up. I expect the talent to show, the talent that all three of us were in love with a year ago that had us rank him in the top 2 to show. And the only hesitation I have is not the other weapons. I don't give a fuck about any of the other guys. It's just AB. The only hesitation I have is AB because the two of them play a very similar role. And I'm curious to see, with both of them being on the offense and having full time, does he get enough looks? That scares me a little bit. But the thing is, if he does, if he gets a shit ton of looks, if he has a very high targeted season, he, again, is a guy that obviously we all feel can end wide receiver 1 because we projected it last year, right? So
yeah.
That's just to put. I love Godwin.
I'm cutting you off.
It's a risky play, but I love him.
Appreciate you, but I'm cutting you off now. Just to put some numbers to that relationship with Tom Brady, like Godwin's numbers wasn't amazing, but his target quality rating was number 5 in the league. His catch rate was number 5. His QB rating when targeting Godwin is number 5 in the league. So, like, the little things that, like, show his relationship with Brady, I mean, there's very few numbers you can really point to show that, but I think those are the ones, maybe.
Yep. All supporting.
So,
all right.
One
Could
more
be
thing
good.
about
You guys ready?
Godwin.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I think Marco hit it where I'm coming from at the end of his argument, right? Antonio Brown plays a similar role to Godwin. And Marco made a lot of points about Godwin being hurt and Godwin not having a lot of time with Brady in the offseason and even throughout the season. I've talked about Antonio Brown before, but he didn't come in until
the same go for AB.
Yeah, he didn't come in until week 9, so that's even worse than Godwin. But the point is that Godwin, even in his good games, was really more 14 to 20. He was very rarely over 20. And that's kind of what I expect going into next season. I think he'll be more consistent because he had a lot of bad games last year. Not a lot. A couple bad games last year. I think he'll be consistently 15 to 20. And he'll probably be a top 10 wide receiver. But like I said before, the floor is just kind of low for me. And there's a chance that he's more 12 to 15 in a lot of games. And that's just not something that I'm looking for in a wide receiver.
AB can always blow up, though. I mean, like, they brought him in to win a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. Now what? You think he's going to be working hard in the off season, following all the rules? Like, AB he's probably had a nice off season.
He already got kicked out of practice.
Yeah, he just fought in practice a seventh round cornerback on the Titans. Ugh, dude. I mean, if AB just does an AB thing,
and that's what I'm bank. I mean, you got to bank on that.
I didn't factor that in.
One last thing before we move on to the next guy, just another highlight for Godwin, even though we were far apart on him. I have him 8, Joey has him 12, Alex has him 15, and his ADP is 16. So great value. Again, we all agree he's at his pick. If you're getting him at 16, you should be drafting him.
Wait, they have him at 16.
All
That's
right, last guy.
Low.
That's so low to me, Joe.
So bad.
It's crazy. Yeah, I'm picking him up in every league. Last guy on the list is. You guys want to take guesses? Take some guesses.
Amari
Who do you
Cooper.
think it is?
Amari Cooper.
No.
McLaurin.
You guys.
It's gonna be Woods.
You guys did not calculate my hate for Amari Cooper, did you?
What'd you put
it is
Amari
Terry
at?
McLaurin.
Really?
I didn't put him that low. I have him at 16. It's not that low.
Okay. Yeah, I only had him at 11.
It's what his ADP is too. I think is like 16.
You can take the floor on McLaurin. Before we even get into McLaurin, I don't love McLaurin. I don't hate McLaurin. I don't really care for McLaurin.
He's a Redskins wide
he's
receiver.
There, he's a Redskins wide receiver.
He's great.
I don't care.
If he had it better.
So you two can talk about McLaurin. If anyone's wondering if I'm suggesting to draft him, I want it, but I also don't know why I want it. So
I love Terry McLaurin. Now the only thing is, I love Terry McLaurin, but so do everybody else in the fantasy community. So he's actually somebody that you can't really get great value on.
So do everybody else.
So do everybody else. Everybody else. I have him at wide receiver 11. That's what kind of put him up a little bit. Joey, where'd you have him? I think you had him at 13.
I had him at 13. Yeah, and it's just basically just the
Yeah, you had him
Redskins.
at 13.
He's great. Like, he's unbelievable. Washington. So good. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, anyway, I have him at 13. I don't hate him. I just think that he's got like a very kind of low floor being on that team. Like they could probably have days where they just don't score a touchdown, and it's like not that unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very, very true. So my thing with McLaurin is last year he was wide receiver 20. So this is a pretty big leap for him to be coming up to wide receiver 11. But he had some of the poorest QB play in the entire league when you're looking at it. And he only had 4 touchdowns on 134 targets. That is very low. Like, I'm not sure if there might be 1 or 2 other wide receivers in the top 20 who had 4 or less touchdowns. And that's it. Like, most wide receivers will have had 5 plus at the minimum. With Fitzmagic, I just expect his touchdowns to go up and his completion percentage. I could easily see him turning his... So last year he had 87 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I think it's very realistic that with Fitzpatrick coming in and having a major QB upgrade like that he could have 110 receptions. Not a massive jump. It's a massive number, but going to 87 to 110 is not insane. With that, mathematically, he would just have 1,400 yards. That's just using the same numbers. And I could see his 4 touchdowns going to 8. And if that's his stat line, if it's 110 receptions, 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. So I do think he has the upside to hit that top 5, but he is one of the lower floor guys here, like Joey was saying. And that's why I have him at 11.
Yeah, I just think every time you bank on Ryan Fitzpatrick, he just sucks. It's like... You need him coming in. Him. Well, no, the team's banking on him. He's coming into the season as their starting quarterback. They expect
but you got to understand,
things.
He doesn't have to be good. He doesn't have to be good.
Yeah, but he does better when you have the spotlight on someone else, and then he jumps in and saves the day. He's not a guy that should be running the bus.
I agree with you, Joey, but he's gonna be better than what Terry had last year.
Thank you. Terry it's a very anecdotal thing to agree with. I got no numbers behind it.
Yeah, you have nothing behind it, and I agree. I like it, but I mean, Terry had Dwayne Haskins at points. He had Taylor Heineke. He had Alex Smith coming off absurd injury. It's just he didn't have good QB play. I think he's going to be an upgrade regardless, whether he's Fitzmagic or just journeyman Fitzpatrick. It doesn't matter. I think he'll be better. It's just like we said with A-Rob. And I think Terry takes a jump. Now, the thing is, he's going at wide receiver 10 in terms of ADP. And that's just... Like, I'm okay with taking him there, clearly, because I have him at 11. But that's the cap. I couldn't... It's tough to get him right now. He is overvalued, in my opinion. Alex has nothing to say. Alex is just nodding.
I told you.
He doesn't care about Terry. I know.
Love him,
you don't care about Terry.
I agree with you. So
Let's play a game.
If he was ADP wide receiver 15 and you were asking me if I would take him at 13, like, yeah, sure, like that's good value. Like I would reach that high on him, but yeah, wide receiver 10, that just doesn't. I don't want Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 1. I don't. So
that's fine. That's fine. I get that. I understand that.
Tell us more about this game.
That's why I'm at 11. I want to play a game.
Real quick, because sorry, before you get to the game, the reason for that, let me expand a little bit, is that if I'm not getting Diggs, Tyreek, Adams, Hill, like one of those top 5-6 guys that we just talked about a second ago, then I'd rather wait for fucking, I don't know, Judy and Claypool than take McLaurin and have to reach on a wide receiver that I don't think is going to be a
I don't know about that.
I think there's a massive difference, but I get your philosophy. I think there's a massive difference between Terry and those guys, but I understand what you're saying, Alex.
Oh, that's not
but
what
you didn't
I'm
want to
saying.
talk about Terry.
For this season, I'd rather have Terry McLaurin in like the late 3rd, early 4th than like Robert Woods in the late 5th, early 6th, or late 4th.
See, that's where I disagree. See, that's where we're different. I'd rather have Woods in late 5th, early 6th.
Gotcha.
And I was hoping that we get into Woods in a second because I know Marco loves him just as much as I do. But go ahead with the game, Marco. Maybe it'll include Woods.
Yeah, it can. It can. So here's the game. We're each going to name one player. I know I didn't ask you guys to prep for this. So we're playing Fortnite. No. I didn't ask you guys to prep for this, so you got to look right now at the list. But who is one guy that we did not name that you think has top 5 potential?
You said it's
as
a quiz.
A dark horse. Don't just name like Don't no, I didn't say quiz. I said a game.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I never said quiz. I said a game.
I said game show.
Here's the game. I don't have quiz questions for you. I'll come up with a quiz question next time.
Are we going
Apparently,
dark? Or are we just going who
business,
was?
But I'll just do everything.
Are we going dark? Or are we just going with whoever was like 13th on our list?
No, I was saying
because I could reach down to like 30.
Don't pick somebody in the top like 15. Go outside of the top 15 at least.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
You gotta name one person. I'll start. I'll start.
No,
okay?
You're gonna take mine. I know it. Fuck.
I'll start. And
no, wait. Can we go at the same time? Can we say it at the same time?
My guy's ADP is.
Alex goes first. Alex goes first. Alex goes first. Alex, you go first.
No, I'm going first. Let me go.
Brandon Ayuk.
Alex goes first.
Fuck! No, come on.
Suck it. That's good. That's a good sign for everybody. I'm going with Brandon Ayuk.
Mom and Dad are definitely gonna yell at me.
Keep it in. I fucking love Brandon Ayuk. The dude is an absolute I mean, he had an incredible, I don't get how he's not being valued more. I know he's really highly valued in the dynasty community, but for some reason, he's kind of going under the radar. And when he's going wide receiver 23, and his rookie season was phenomenal, and that was with, again, I know I keep saying everybody has some of the worst QB play in the league, but the three teams that I named really did. Again, a guy who had terrible QB play. Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt a lot. He had just a carousel of QBs coming through, and
even when Garoppolo played, he wasn't very good. So,
yeah, sure, but regardless, he still was just elite. This guy was truly elite, and he's kind of just being ignored. I mean, where was he? I'm trying to check real quick where he was in terms of points per game. Wide receiver 18. So he was wide receiver 18 in terms of points per game in his rookie year, having multiple injuries throughout the year, having terrible QB play. And I think, everybody knows this if you've been listening, I think he's going to have a massive QB upgrade because I think Trey Lance is going to be fucking phenomenal. So when you factor that in, and this guy going into his second year, I think the sky's the limit. Top 5 wide receiver dark horse.
This is exactly what I'm talking about when I was just talking with Joey a second ago. I'd much rather take a guy like Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver 22 than I would Terry McLaurin at wide receiver 10. Strictly, well, I think that Ayuk can finish ahead of McLaurin. Ayuk, for me, this upcoming season, what I predict, this is just, based off nothing. I predict that he's going to be an average around 16 to 18 points per game with a couple of 25 plus mixed in there. And I don't see it being much lower, frankly, ever. I don't see him dropping below 15 points.
Most anecdotal bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
I think you guys are kind of out of your minds with this Ayuk thing. I love Ayuk. I was big on Ayuk. I had him on all my teams pretty much. I think maybe he's got wide receiver 1, like 12 to 10 potential. But, dude, top 5. I mean, I think there's very few people who could break the top 5 who aren't in at least the top 10. I just think it's
I got another one.
We're going dark horse, Joey. Am I projecting that he ends top 5? No.
Jamar Chase is my dark horse.
Dude, again? My second guy.
You don't get second. You don't get 2 guys, dude. I don't even get 1 guy yet.
But I had to have a second guy because Ayuk was taken from me, and now you just took Chase.
Pick a third,
now
Alex.
where do I go?
Yeah, pick a third, dude. You got 2 chances. You lost on both of them.
You gotta give me a second.
You should show up to the show
was
more,
my
bitch.
first.
Go
it was
ahead,
my
Joey.
first. Yeah.
Forget it.
Jamar Chase,
real
dude.
dark.
The
I'll get
Bengals
real
throw
dark in a second.
Shit ton. He's already got a connection with Joe Burrow. He's insane. He's just an insane wide receiver. I mean, everyone's sleeping on him because he didn't play in college last year. But I'm telling you, I am thinking he's just going to come out the gates and just be better, like a Justin Jefferson type, the way he's going to impress us.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say Justin Jefferson. For anyone who thinks a rookie wide receiver can't finish that high, Justin Jefferson just did it. Wide receiver 7 or 8, whatever he was last year.
Jamar Chase.
And I think Jamar Chase was better than him at LSU. And now he's going to Burrow, who's a better quarterback than Kirk, and he's coming off injury, of course. But there's no reason to believe Chase can't be top 5.
Yeah.
There's no reason to believe it can't.
He's so well.
He's going at wide receiver fucking 26. So.
All right, Alex, finish us off. Who are you picking?
This is bullshit. By the way, I want everyone here to know
settle.
It's bullshit. But I'm going deep into my bag of tricks. Top 5 potential, just traded for him in the league. DJ Chark.
Write
it up there. DJ Chark. Why not?
Why not?
Trevor Lawrence got to throw the ball to someone. He's got to throw the ball to someone. And if DJ Chark is healthy for 16 games, there's no reason he doesn't get 8 to 10 targets a game. There's no reason. And he's a great receiver. We saw it the past 2 years. I mean, he was plagued with injuries last year, but he's a great receiver. I just, the numbers are there. The hypothetical numbers are there. That's all I'll say.
I'm a DJ Chark fan, so you're not gonna hear me say it's crazy. It is pretty crazy.
Well, I'm glad.
But
yeah. I feel like he could finish like top 10.
I have Chark on a lot of teams.
I feel like
I do think wide receiver 1 is. I think he's a wide receiver 1 dark horse. I do think that.
Right, and he's going at wide receiver.
It's all going to depend. It's all going to depend on whether or not he actually is their wide receiver 1. That it's all going to depend on that. If he's actually Trevor Lawrence's
that he's going at damn near wide receiver 4. What?
Well, the whole thing with it, and it's not totally inaccurate to say that, but the whole thing is he's got Laviska and Marvin Jones and new coach, and he wasn't, and last year was on and off, and a new QB.
Marvin Jones.
It's a reset.
It's totally dominate
My point is
eyes of everybody.
You're guaranteed. Yeah, you're guaranteed.
Forget Hog, Marvin Jones. No, but don't say Marvin Jones coming in.
Okay, Shark is a guaranteed. Marvin Jones is the most established of all the wide receivers on that team. So don't give me shit about Marvin Jones. There's a very good chance he leads that team in targets. That's my point, is that I love Shark, but we don't know. People don't know. Is he going to be the most targeted wide receiver on that team, or is he going to be the 3rd or 4th most targeted wide receiver on that team? We don't really know what their plans are yet. If he is the most targeted and he's their true wide receiver 1, then he has the sky's the limit. I agree. All right, Joey, sign us off. That's all we have. What do we got next week?
Oh, man. Next week, we are cooking up something awesome for you guys.
Are you buying yourself time right now?
Don't even want to tell you because I can't.
Buying time.
I can't even put it into words. Just tune in and check it out.
Tune in next week on the Fantasy Feud. This podcast was hosted by Marco Balsamo, Joey Zoll, and Alex Balsamo. Produced by 133 Media and edited by Joe Amato.